On March 23, 1999, co-pilot Michael Thompson, a 28-year-old experienced aviator, mysteriously vanished during United Airways Flight 892 from Chicago to London, becoming one of the most perplexing cases in American aviation history when a seasoned crew member disappeared without a trace from a Boeing 757 flying at 41,000 feet over the Atlantic Ocean. Thompson was a respected pilot with over 6 years of commercial aviation experience, known for his meticulous attention to safety protocols and his dedication to professional excellence, having recently been promoted to senior co-pilot after successfully completing an advanced training program that qualified him to fly on the airline's most important international routes. The flight had departed normally from O'Hare International Airport at 8:15 p.m. Central Time, carrying 284 passengers on a route that United Airways had operated without incident for over 15 years, with Thompson occupying his usual position in the cockpit alongside Captain James Mitchell, a veteran pilot with whom he had flown together on more than 40 previous occasions. Where are you reading from? Share your city and country in the comments before continuing this story. During the first 3 hours of the flight, everything had proceeded according to standard protocol, with Thompson performing his routine checks, communicating normally with air traffic control, and maintaining professional conversation with the captain about weather conditions and flight progress toward London Heathrow. Senior flight attendant Lisa Rodriguez, 31 years old with 8 years of international flight experience, had noticed that Thompson seemed slightly agitated during the pre-flight inspection, but had attributed this to normal stress from flying a newly assigned route that had been recently added to his regular schedule. However, approximately at 11:45 p.m. GMT, while the aircraft was cruising over international waters of the North Atlantic at 41,000 feet altitude, Thompson simply disappeared from the cockpit without explanation, leaving Captain Mitchell alone to pilot the aircraft and raising the impossible question of how a grown man could vanish from a pressurized and sealed space without anyone witnessing his departure. 6 years later, in 2005, Lisa Rodriguez would contact FBI Special Agent Sarah Chen, the lead investigator on the original case, with a confession that would reveal a conspiracy involving arms trafficking, government cover-ups, and a murder so carefully orchestrated that it had successfully concealed the truth about Thompson's fate for years, while allowing the perpetrators to continue their illegal activities with complete impunity. Flight 892 had begun as a routine operation, but from the moment of takeoff, a series of seemingly innocent events had been setting the stage for Michael Thompson's disappearance, as the co-pilot had unknowingly discovered evidence of a sophisticated arms smuggling operation that was using United Airways flights as cover for transporting illegal weapons between the United States and European buyers. During the standard pre-flight inspection he had conducted according to established protocols, Thompson had noticed minor discrepancies in the aircraft's weight distribution that didn't match the official cargo manifest, differences that he had initially attributed to documentation errors, but had decided to investigate more thoroughly during the flight to ensure they didn't represent a safety hazard. Lisa Rodriguez had observed that Thompson had spent unusual time examining the cargo compartments during his inspection, making notes in his personal logbook, and taking photographs with a small camera he carried to document any irregularities he might encounter during his flights. Captain James Mitchell, who had been secretly recruited by the smuggling network 18 months earlier, when financial troubles from his divorce had left him vulnerable to blackmail, had been monitoring Thompson's activities with growing concern, especially after the co-pilot had begun asking questions about modified flight routes and last-minute changes to cargo manifests. During the first hours of the flight, Thompson had continued his discreet investigation, using the aircraft's navigation systems to verify they were following the official flight plan and consulting documentation he had brought with him about cargo security protocols that were being systematically violated. Lisa had noticed that tension in the cockpit had gradually increased, with conversations becoming increasingly brief between the captain and co-pilot, and had observed that Mitchell had been making unscheduled radio calls using frequencies that weren't part of standard communication procedures. Approximately at 11:30 p.m., Thompson had made a discovery that would seal his fate. He had found photographic evidence of cargo compartments that had been illegally modified to conceal weapons, and had calculated that the additional weight of the illegal cargo represented a significant safety risk to the flight that the captain had been deliberately concealing. When Thompson had confronted Mitchell with this evidence and had threatened to report the violations to aviation authorities as soon as they landed in London, he had unknowingly signed his own death warrant from a criminal organization that could not allow their multi-million-dollar operation to be exposed. The elimination of Michael Thompson was executed with precision that demonstrated the sophistication of the arms smuggling network and their experience in removing threats to their operations, using methods that had been developed specifically to make people disappear from aircraft in flight without leaving physical evidence that could be detected during subsequent investigations. Captain Mitchell had discreetly activated an encrypted communication system that had been illegally installed in the aircraft, alerting his contacts on the ground about the problematic situation that had developed with the co-pilot and receiving specific instructions on how to proceed to eliminate the threat without compromising the ongoing smuggling operation. During the final moments before Thompson's disappearance, Lisa had observed that Mitchell had sent Thompson to conduct an emergency inspection of the pressurization systems in the cargo section, an order that had seemed routine but had actually been designed to lure the co-pilot to an area of the aircraft where he could be eliminated without passengers or the rest of the crew witnessing. What Lisa witnessed next would traumatize her for the following 6 years. She had seen two men she didn't recognize, dressed as crew members but who were clearly not United Airways employees, emerge from the cargo section and head toward where Thompson had been sent, carrying equipment that appeared medical but had a sinister purpose. The men had been introduced to the aircraft during an unscheduled maintenance stop that had occurred before takeoff, supposedly to perform routine inspections, but which had actually been an opportunity to place assassins aboard, along with the weapons cargo that constituted the real purpose of the flight. Lisa had heard sounds of struggle coming from the cargo section, followed by ominous silence, and when she had attempted to investigate, she had been intercepted by Mitchell, who had explained with terrifying coldness that she had witnessed something that never happened, and that her survival depended on her ability to completely forget anything unusual she might have observed during the flight. The assassins had used sedative drugs to incapacitate Thompson before utilizing the aircraft's emergency disposal system to eject his body over the North Atlantic, an operation that had been timed to coincide with an area of deep waters where the body would never be recovered. The medical equipment they had used included devices to simulate a heart attack in case the body was eventually found. But the remote location over international waters had ensured there would be no physical evidence of what had actually occurred aboard Flight 892. The arms smuggling network that had ordered Michael Thompson's assassination had been operating within United Airways for over 4 years, corrupting key employees and establishing elaborate routes for transporting weapons between the United States, Europe, and conflict zones in Africa and Asia, using commercial aircraft as the perfect cover for their criminal activities. The organization was led by Richard Blackwood, a high-level United Airways executive who had used his position to recruit pilots, maintenance personnel, and airport employees who were willing to participate in smuggling operations in exchange for payments that significantly exceeded their official salaries. Captain Mitchell had initially been recruited after the organization had investigated his personal financial situation and discovered his substantial divorce-related debts, offering him a solution to his financial problems that had resulted in his complete participation in criminal activities. The network had developed sophisticated methods for modifying cargo compartments in aircraft without detection, creating hidden spaces that could transport up to 200 assault rifles per flight without being detected during routine inspections by aviation authorities or customs officials. The flights to London had been particularly lucrative for the organization, as the route established connections with European arms dealers who paid premium prices for weapons transported, using methods that had minimal chances of interception by law enforcement agencies. Lisa had been specifically threatened with photographs of her family, including her elderly father and her teenage daughter, making it clear that any attempt to reveal what she had witnessed would result not only in her own death, but also in the systematic elimination of all her loved ones. The organization had prepared an elaborate cover story to explain Thompson's disappearance, including falsified documentation suggesting he had voluntarily left the aircraft during an unscheduled fuel stop in Ireland, taking advantage of complex international jurisdictions to create an explanation that would be difficult to verify. During the years following Thompson's murder, the network had continued expanding their operations, recruiting additional airline personnel, and developing more sophisticated routes that included flights to the Middle East and Southeast Asia, where they could transport even more valuable cargo with minimal risk of detection. The profits generated by these operations had been used to corrupt high-level government officials, including members of aviation regulatory authorities and customs agents who received regular payments to ignore suspicious activities or to provide advance information about scheduled inspections. The 6 years that followed Michael Thompson's assassination were a period of psychological torment for Lisa Rodriguez, who had been forced to continue working for United Airways while living with the knowledge that she had witnessed a murder and was being used involuntarily as part of a criminal operation that continued using commercial flights to transport weapons and eliminate anyone who threatened to expose their activities. The airline had skillfully managed the official investigation into Thompson's disappearance, providing prepared statements that described his voluntary abandonment of the flight as the result of personal problems that had led him to seek a new life in Europe, a story that was impossible to verify due to privacy laws and the complexity of international missing person investigations. Thompson's family, devastated by his disappearance and frustrated by the lack of cooperation from official authorities, had hired private investigators and pressed relentlessly for a deeper investigation. But their efforts had been systematically obstructed by corrupt officials who had been bribed to keep the case closed. Lisa had attempted multiple times to find ways to reveal the truth without endangering her family, including anonymous attempts to contact journalists and sending tips to independent investigators. But the criminal organization had anticipated these efforts and had surveillance systems that detected any suspicious activity on her part. During this period, Lisa developed severe mental health problems, including chronic depression, anxiety attacks, and post-traumatic stress disorder, requiring constant medication and therapy that she could never fully benefit from because she couldn't reveal the true source of her trauma. The arms smuggling network had continued expanding during these years, with Richard Blackwood being promoted within United Airways and using his improved position to recruit additional airline personnel and identify new routes that could be exploited for smuggling operations. Lisa had been strategically kept under surveillance and periodically reminded about the consequences of betraying the secret through subtle threats and demonstrations of the organization's continued ability to monitor and control her life and that of her family members. The smuggling operation had generated estimated profits of more than $300 million during this period, money that had been used to expand operations into new international markets and to corrupt even higher-level government officials who provided political protection for the criminal activities. Lisa had secretly attempted to gather evidence about the network's operations, taking enormous personal risks to document their activities in the hope that someday she might find a way to expose them without condemning her family to death. In 2005, a series of events would converge to provide Lisa with the opportunity and courage necessary to finally reveal the truth about Michael Thompson's assassination and expose the extensive arms smuggling network that had been operating with impunity for years within the American commercial aviation industry. FBI Special Agent Sarah Chen, who had been assigned to a new task force specializing in investigating irregularities in commercial airlines, had developed suspicions about unusual patterns in United Airways operations after analyzing flight data that showed frequent deviations from standard routes and last-minute changes to cargo manifests. Chen had identified inconsistencies in official records related to Thompson's disappearance and had begun questioning the official version of events, especially after discovering that several other United Airways employees had reported suspicious behavior on similar flights during the same period. A change in leadership at the Department of Homeland Security had resulted in the assignment of new prosecutors who were not compromised by corruption, providing an opportunity to reopen cases that had been previously closed without interference from criminally compromised officials. Lisa had learned through contacts in the aviation industry that Chen was leading a renewed investigation into irregularities at United Airways, and after months of careful surveillance to ensure she wasn't being monitored, she had managed to make secret contact with the agent. The initial meeting between Lisa and Chen took place in a secure FBI facility outside Chicago, where Lisa finally found the courage to reveal the complete details of Thompson's assassination and the arms smuggling operation she had been forced to protect for 6 years. Chen immediately recognized the significance of Lisa's confession and worked with her to develop a plan that would allow them to gather additional evidence while protecting her safety and that of her family from retaliation by the criminal network. Lisa provided Chen with documentation she had been secretly compiling for years, including flight schedules that correlated with smuggling activities, recorded conversations she had clandestinely obtained, and financial evidence demonstrating unusual money flows connected to the criminal operations. The plan developed by Chen included coordination with international law enforcement agencies to intercept a smuggling operation in progress, providing irrefutable evidence that would expose the entire criminal network and ensure that the perpetrators could not escape justice or eliminate witnesses. The operation to expose the arms smuggling network and obtain justice for Michael Thompson was executed with military precision in September 2005, when American, British, and Irish authorities coordinated simultaneously to arrest all members of the conspiracy while intercepting a massive shipment of assault rifles that was being transported on United Airways Flight 445 from New York to Dublin. Lisa had provided crucial information about the methods used to conceal weapons within modified aircraft compartments, the communication codes used by the conspirators, and the specific schedules when weapon transfers took place, allowing investigators to intercept evidence that would have otherwise remained hidden during routine inspections. The arrests included not only Captain Mitchell and Richard Blackwood, but also an extensive network of accomplices that included corrupt aircraft mechanics, maintenance personnel, bribed customs agents, airport officials paid to ignore suspicious activities, and multiple members of international arms-dealing organizations who had been using United Airways as their primary method of transport to global markets. Evidence gathered during the raids revealed the true magnitude of the operation, which had been transporting more than 5,000 weapons annually for 4 years, generating profits estimated at more than $400 million that had been laundered through legitimate investments and offshore banking accounts. During interrogations that followed the arrests, multiple conspirators confessed their participation in Thompson's assassination, confirming the details Lisa had provided and revealing additional information about how they had disposed of the body and fabricated false evidence to support the story of his voluntary defection to Europe. Captain Mitchell, facing overwhelming evidence and the prospect of multiple life sentences, finally admitted that he had personally administered the sedative drugs to Thompson before the assassins ejected him from the aircraft over international waters, a confession that provided the final closure that the Thompson family had sought for 6 years. Richard Blackwood, the United Airways executive who had directed the entire operation, revealed during his confession that the airline had been completely aware of the smuggling activities at the highest management levels and had received regular payments for providing access to aircraft and facilitating the transport of illegal cargo. The confessions also revealed that Thompson had not been the first victim of the network, with evidence suggesting that at least 3 other airline employees who had asked inconvenient questions about suspicious activities had been eliminated during the previous years, including a maintenance inspector who had discovered unauthorized modifications and a security officer who had reported suspicious pilot behavior. The trials that followed the exposure of the arms smuggling network became one of the most significant criminal cases in American aviation history, attracting international media attention and resulting in comprehensive reforms of aviation security regulations and oversight protocols for commercial airlines. Captain James Mitchell was sentenced to life imprisonment without possibility of parole for Michael Thompson's murder, in addition to additional sentences for arms trafficking, conspiracy, and multiple other charges related to the criminal operation he had helped direct for years. Richard Blackwood and other principal conspirators received sentences ranging from 35 to 55 years, depending on their level of involvement in the crimes and their cooperation with authorities during the investigation. United Airways was fined $200 million and temporarily had its license revoked for certain international routes, forcing the airline to implement comprehensive security reforms and oversight systems that would prevent future criminal activities. Lisa Rodriguez was placed in a witness protection program and received complete immunity in exchange for her testimony. But more importantly, she finally found the psychological peace she had been seeking for 6 years, by knowing she had brought justice to Michael and had helped dismantle a criminal organization that had been harming global security. Thompson's family, although devastated by the confirmation that Michael had been murdered, expressed gratitude toward Lisa for her courage in finally revealing the truth and providing the closure they had desperately sought for years. The case inspired the creation of Thompson's Law, legislation requiring enhanced security protocols for aircraft crews, including GPS tracking systems for all crew members, real-time surveillance cameras in cockpits, and more rigorous background checks for all aviation personnel. The revelations also led to reforms in aircraft inspection procedures, with new requirements for random inspections of cargo compartments and improved detection systems for identifying unauthorized modifications that could be used to conceal contraband. The international cooperation demonstrated during the investigation established new standards for coordination between law enforcement agencies in cases involving multiple jurisdictions and transnational criminal organizations operating in the aviation industry. A decade after the truth about Michael Thompson's assassination was finally revealed, the impact of his case continued to influence aviation security policies and crew protection protocols throughout the United States and internationally, while Michael's memory served as a powerful reminder of the dangers faced by aviation professionals when they stand against corruption and organized crime. Lisa Rodriguez had found a new career as an aviation security consultant, working with international organizations to develop better protocols for protecting aircraft crews and support systems for airline employees who might witness criminal activities in their workplaces. The case had inspired legislative reforms in multiple countries, establishing international standards for oversight of airline operations and creating legal mechanisms to protect employees who report criminal activities in the aviation industry. The Michael Thompson Foundation, established by his family using legal compensation from the case, had become a leading organization in promoting aviation safety and fighting corruption in air transport, providing educational resources, advanced tracking systems, and support services for families of airline employees who had been victims of work-related crimes. Investigation procedures developed during the case had been adopted by law enforcement agencies internationally, creating standardized protocols for investigating cases involving corruption in the air transport industry and criminal networks operating across multiple jurisdictions. The witness protection techniques used to protect Lisa had established new standards for safeguarding individuals who risk their lives to expose powerful criminal organizations, providing models that have been implemented in similar cases throughout the United States and internationally. Michael's story had been told in multiple documentaries, books, and educational programs that teach about the importance of integrity in aviation, witness protection, and the need for constant vigilance to prevent criminal organizations from exploiting commercial transportation systems. The monitoring systems developed in response to the case had evolved into advanced technologies using artificial intelligence and pattern analysis to detect suspicious activities in airports and aircraft, providing tools that have been instrumental in preventing multiple smuggling attempts and other crimes in the American aviation industry. The memorial established in honor of Michael at Chicago O'Hare International Airport had become a symbol of the fight against corruption in the aviation industry, and a reminder that truth always prevails, no matter how long it takes or how powerful those who attempt to conceal it. Today, more than 2 decades after Michael Thompson lost his life defending integrity in commercial aviation, his legacy lives in every security protocol that protects aircraft crews, every verification system that prevents criminals from accessing commercial aircraft, and every protection mechanism that allows courageous witnesses like Lisa Rodriguez to reveal the truth without fear of deadly retaliation. The advanced technologies inspired by his case have evolved into comprehensive security systems that combine biometric surveillance, real-time tracking, and predictive analysis to identify and prevent criminal activities before they can harm aviation professionals or compromise the safety of commercial flights. The American aviation industry, once vulnerable to exploitation by criminal networks due to inadequate regulations and insufficient oversight, now operates under some of the world's most rigorous security protocols, with verification systems, inspection procedures, and training programs that have been developed specifically to prevent other professionals like Michael from suffering the fate imposed on him by his commitment to honesty and safety. Michael's family, although forever marked by the devastating loss of their loved one, had found purpose and healing through their tireless work to protect other aviation professionals, transforming their personal tragedy into a powerful force for positive change that has saved countless lives and honored the memory of a man who died defending the highest principles of the aviation profession. The witness protection protocols developed in response to the case have been adopted internationally, creating a global network of safeguards that protects brave individuals who risk everything to expose the truth about powerful criminal organizations operating in the shadows of respectable industries. His photograph, taken during happier days when he smiled proudly while preparing for another flight, is displayed in the memorial as a reminder that he was a real professional with dreams, hopes, and a family who loved him deeply. Not simply a victim of criminal greed, but an individual whose life had profound value and whose death inspired fundamental changes that have benefited countless other aviation professionals worldwide. Michael's story continues to be told in aviation schools, airline training programs, and public education centers that teach new generations about the importance of integrity, the courage to stand against corruption, and the responsibility we all share to protect the safety of commercial aviation. The systems that now protect crews during commercial flights are so advanced that many airline employees never realize the multiple layers of security operating to ensure their protection, from biometric verifications to satellite monitoring that can track their exact location throughout their work shift. Each crew member who safely completes a commercial flight carries with them a bit of Michael Thompson's legacy, and every airline employee who chooses to do the right thing by reporting suspicious activities fulfills the implicit promise that his sacrifice was not in vain. His story demonstrates that even the darkest tragedies can be transformed into forces for good, when love, determination, and commitment to justice combine to create lasting changes that protect life and honor the memory of those who died defending professional integrity, ensuring that Michael is remembered not only for how he died, but for the countless lives that his legacy has helped save and protect in the skies of America and beyond.